forget what the number was, and it was striking to me, but it's pre-pandemic, and the amount of, I forget it offhand, the number of public school kids in New York City that are homeless, it's hundreds of thousands. It's like small city work. It's crazy. It's really sad, and that's really sad. Now with universal basic income, like I agree with it in principle. We need something for people. But what worries me about it, and any real plan about it, the machine. I worry that the machine's going to suck all that money up. So now everybody's got an extra 1,000. Does that mean rent just went up 500? Your cable bill went up 100? Does it just suck it all back up? And that would have to be avoided.
Right, that would, and that's why, like, based on economic principles, there's supply and demand. So if everyone knows everyone's getting $1,000, right?
Right.
If rent just goes up by 500, how the market works is someone is going to be like, wait, I can still charge the same amount I was charging, and still I'll get all of that revenue in between. You know what I mean? Just literally working the market, and the people will vote with their dollars and say, oh, I'm going to go to this. If McDonald's says, oh, all of our burgers now are, instead of being a meal being $10, now it's $20.
Right.
Everybody's just going to go to Burger King because it stayed $10. So
for me, Burger King is like, you know what? It's $19 now, but we're $1 cheaper than McDonald's. I don't know. I don't know how it plays out. There's a certain greed of capitalism that you got to check. And
that's why also it's been proposed to tie the basic income to inflation. But at a certain point, the market, you just can't raise the prices on items that high, or people will, there comes a point where people will just not buy the items. You know what I mean?
I hope that. I know it's weird, but then you look at they keep buying the rent in Brooklyn, and I don't get it. I'd like to think that the consumer has the power, but then it's like the consumer doesn't get together and have that power.
The rent is a very interesting issue. And I think a part of the reason that it's gotten that bad is because you have to live. And so people want,
right.
You have to find a place to live. So that makes it hard. I mean, me personally, I think it's criminal to charge people that much to have a place to live. Like, we have to live. Like, and we created a society where you can't just like live outside in a hut.
Right, you're not even allowed, right?
Yeah, like you actually have to have a house. So if that's the case, then we have to make it so everyone has a house, and we can have it so they have a good house because the building materials are all there. And another thing I would say about the prices rising is experimentation. At a certain point, we do have to try new things. You know what I mean? Like we have to try new things. If the idea on the table was to go bomb Saudi Arabia because of XYZ happened, they would have a million reasons why it would work, why it wouldn't work, and then they would do it as we have in the past.
Okay, gentlemen, I'm ready to go on Instagram, so we only have 1 hour.
All right.
So whenever you're ready, you let me know. It was a pleasure it was a pleasure listening to both of you. And we're ready, right? Grab your beer, grab your... So, well, welcome. Thanks, Jared, but hold on, let me check. I think, tell me if we're live on Instagram.
Who, me? Sure, I'll tell you.
I think we are, but let me check. Yes, we are, because I just received a notification. So,
okay. All right,
well, thank you, Jared. Thank you, Paperboy.
Thank you, guys.
So I'll do a quick introduction. So this is just Zoom with Paperboy. So basically, it's a master class. It's a special master class because Paperboy is a first-time candidate, and we invite hosts to talk about the topic that they confronted during their own election or their own political career. So we had various hosts in the last few Paperboys Zoom with Paperboy, and today the topic is, I'm going to say Errol Lewis, but really is the role of the media into letting candidates with new voices reach out to the voter. So I know when we started, the reason I wanted to have you today, Jared, is because you were a first-time candidate. You announced for your candidacy for public advocate on December 28th. You and I had a little conversation on Twitter, and we were talking about getting into Errol Lewis program. Then after that, it didn't happen, and sometime in February, you said, I'm going to do a lawsuit because I am not included in the debate, like it happened with many candidates. And then lastly, you went and did a protest. You protested. You went from this person who is going to follow the system, and you became an activist and a protester. So what I want to talk about is really the road that took you from I'm a candidate to I'm becoming a protester. You were ahead of your time in a way for a candidate to become protester. So what happened? Just to go ahead, tell us who you are. We have an hour. So
I've been at protests before I was a candidate. We'll start with that. But I'm Jared. I'm Jared Rich. I'm an attorney from Brooklyn. I did run for public advocate in the special election in 2019. I did decide that the election was February 26, 2019. I decided to run really in the middle of December of 2018. I was reading about the election. Then I started learning about how to get onto the ballot. And then I decided it was worth a go. And it would be a good 2-month, project to see what could happen. I did believe in my heart if I picked up some type of traction and I got some type of media exposure, I could have won that election. I really believe I could have touched the voters' hearts and minds and spirit and done something more than coming in last place, which is what I wound up doing. Though I did get 1,000 votes, which was a good start.
Also, can you remind us, not to cut you off, can you remind us the year that was that you ran? And I think that was was that a special election as well?
Special election, 2019. So the special election was February 26, 2019. So starting in December, the first thing was how do you get on a ballot, learned how to do the petitions, created my petitions, got a little team together, and we actually pulled it off. Got 4,000 signatures and snuck onto the ballot. And then I would go around the city and went to all these different forums and was started to have an impact as far as reaching voters in person. But the media completely shut me out. And it's hard. I try to be fair. That election had 16 people actively running. There was a bunch of city council members, or a bunch of assembly members. There was the co-chair of the Democratic Party was running. Former speaker of the council's running. Just a lot of known people.
And you never ran for office before up to that point, right?
No, I just came out of the blue, and they had no idea who I was, and I was a complete unknown, and I could appreciate that. I can appreciate that. But then I would start seeing things like, going to a forum, and when the forum was over, a lot of people were swarming me and talking to me and wanted to discuss things with me. And then you'd read about the forum the next day, and it's like I wasn't even there. And it starts making you scratch your head, And then specifically now going towards the debate. So in that election, it's a citywide election. There's campaign finance. There was matching funds. So at the beginning, when you wanted to take matching funds, if you wanted to get into that program, you had to agree to be part of the debate program. Okay. And there's an actual statute for these debates that had criteria. And really the way the statute read was this. It says, we're going to have these debates, and there'll be a sponsor of the debate, and then the sponsor can set the criteria for the debate, but they have to have it so that also one of the criteria has to be that you need to raise and spend a certain amount of money.
Okay.
And what they interpreted that to be, so New York One was the sponsor, and it seems like they're mostly the sponsor for all of these debates, which is a whole other topic because New York One is really only seen by less than half of the city, even has access to New York One. Fine. And not to knock New York One. New York One's great. Also, I don't really want to knock Errol Lewis during this too much because I think he's great too. He's a pretty smart guy, and I agree with him on a lot of stuff. And
yes, and I want to take that time to say this is about spreading love and educating people in the process and using your experience, my experience, and all our guest experience as a tool for people who are thinking about it, people who are in your place when you were considering running, having this as a resource for them. So it's not about coming at anyone. It's about spreading love and actually giving just your honest truth so that we can move forward and actually progress to just have a better city, a better state, and a better society. But yeah, no, you were talking about New York One and the access to that, and I cut you off.
So it turned into that they interpreted it to be those are the criteria. You got to raise and spend a certain amount of money. It was something like, so there were two different debates. The first, and then the second debate had a criteria of needing endorsements from organizations, elected officials, etc., whatever it was. So it became that the criteria to get onto the debate for the first debate was you needed to raise and spend $56,000, something like $56,000 for an election that was called officially on like January 2nd or something. And it was a debate on, I don't know what it was, early February or late January. You needed to raise and spend $56,000. So now
in a month, they're basically a month and a half. They're saying you needed to raise and spend $50,000.
Were actively campaigning before they even announced this election because they knew it was going to happen. And I admittedly jumped in late in the game. So I did limited fundraising. And my limited fundraising, I got something like $11,000 or $12,000,
Oh, that's
and I
great.
wound up spending that. But I wasn't actively probably raise the money. I could definitely raise this money. But then I would have to go spend everybody, and like, what am I going to waste all this money on? And that was inherently an issue for me. Like my conscience couldn't do that. That I would have had to, thanks guys, now waste them on some commercial or something.
Hold up. I'm just going to say now, I'm going to consistently cut you off when you say something that I want to follow up on. But that's such a great point because they have such a, when I say they, I want to be clear, I'm talking about the establishment, and to be even more specific, the New York political establishment, Democrat and Republican, just in general, have so much of a infatuation with raising money just for the sake of raising money, just for the sake of putting money into the pot of this political industrial complex that happens here. That I'm like you said, what's the point of you raising $50,000 just to hurry up and spend the $50,000 when you should be applauded for running a campaign in a thrifty way? You should be applauded for being able to handle your affairs and not having to spend all this money because of your connections, because of your knowledge, because of you being good at business or what have you. So I don't, and then they praise people who raise this money, and we're not even going to talk about how or where they're raising money from. They raise money, and then they just spend it on, it's like, wait, you're applauding them for raising this money. They're just spending it badly. Like they're not even like doing it.
And then you wonder why your elected officials don't spend your money right, and then everybody has a problem with the waste in government because you're starting it from the inception is you're rewarding people who waste money. And then those are your elected officials.
Right. Exactly. So that for me is like a big issue, and it shows how they can't spend money. How they can't spend money in a way that actually helps the people. Like, and the quality. Why is that a criteria that you have to raise? And who said, was this by the Democratic Party or is this by? This is
there's the I guess it's a state statute, but it's that says that for these debates, this is the requirement. This has to be one of the requirements. But I could understand that if they wanted to make it that if you did raise all this money, then you should have your voice heard at the debates, but there should be other criteria, which is what I was trying to get at, where now getting back to what Theo was starting at. So I started as a candidate. Then I was going to sue them. I threatened to sue everybody, which I was going to do because I think that they impose by, goes against the nature of the public policy of anything, of just having freedom of debates and some information out there for the voters to only use that as the criteria. And New York one was only using that as a criteria and then pointed to it and saying, well, we followed the criteria when they could have made any criteria. The statute said you can make any criteria. The criteria could be the following. Is that person on the ballot?
Right, exactly.
If they get on the ballot should be the criteria, at least for something, you'd think. But then I decided, as far as the lawsuit, like I was going to lose the lawsuit. And more than that, I was concerned that it was going to come out as like some type of like crybaby thing to do. Like, why you're suing them, and then you're the lawyer trying to sue this. I just didn't think it was going to play out right, public relations wise. And then what happened was it was too late, and I woke up one morning and I realized there's a way to game the system. And I could have, if I had done it earlier, I could have gamed the system against them and got on the debate stage.
So real quick, before you go into that, I want to say this. So, Paper, yeah, it's our time. Welcome to everyone who's just joining in. If you don't know what's happening, this is Zoom with Paperboy, where basically we have our esteemed guests who have made a name for themselves in the political scene here in New York City, and they're telling us about their experience about running for office. So this basically is a resource for you about how to run for office or what it takes to run for office or the background behind that. But I cut off my guest again, Jared Rich, who is a lawyer and also ran for public advocate in 2019. And right now you were just speaking about how you basically could have gamed the system to get on the debate stage, which a lot of people don't know how much politics it is. Now I understand when people before would say, we're like, oh, why didn't something happen? And you're like, oh, it's politics.
No,
now
it's crazy. It's such an eye opener.
I get what they mean. I'm like, oh, you mean it's now I get it. Like politics means like, oh, they just like try to screw you on purpose. So, but the debate stage.
When you live it, it's like you can't believe it. When you live it, you think you're living like a paranoid delusion or something. You can't even believe it. How do you game the system? I'll tell everyone. But now, so this would be for a city debate.
Yeah.
They got something called in-kind contribution. And so if you take a service or if you take a product from somebody that's worth something of value for your campaign, you're supposed to report that as an income, as an expense. And as far as I'm concerned, if I would have took 100 lawyers and said they all gave me an hour of their time, we sat in a room and we all talked about something, and then they billed me $500 an hour as a service, as an income, and as an expense, we could have added up to $56,000 and said, what? We spent it, But I thought of it too late. I thought of too late.
You know what? That's so great that you said that, because I can't remember who it was who told me about that. I can't remember who it was who was telling me about using, because that's the same thing with our campaign. We've gotten a bunch of in-kind donations, and not in that way, basically, of whether it be a conversation, whether it be time of our volunteers, things of that nature. Like those are all like, if somebody's working for you for a month, 3 days a week for 10 hours for each of those 3 days, how much is that time worth, right? Even if you're just billing it out minimum wage. So
yeah, but maybe you don't value your people at minimum wage. Maybe you value your people at $100 an hour.
Exactly.
I don't know. There's a game to be played there, and it is what it is. But I thought of that too late. So then what did I think of is, let's have a protest. Let's do something. So I got a megaphone and I got a permit from the New York City Police Department to have that megaphone, and they put up a little barrier, and we went outside in New York 1 to have a little protest in the rain in the middle of February. Knowing that the actual debate wasn't being held in the studios, it was being held further uptown, but I didn't want to my opponents, I respected them. I didn't want to like really steal the show from them as far as going over there and trying to make a whole scene. And I thought I could, get a point across by shouting in the middle of the street on a megaphone with people storming around New York One Studios with, cabs honking, and it was a little bit of a scene. But guess what happened?
What?
A candidate for public advocate had a protest against the debate. Another candidate for public advocate even joined at the beginning of it. Not one. Go try to find anything about that debate, about that protest. It's like it never happened. You'd think that like CBS 2 would have picked up on it, or 4 or 7 or any of them would have picked up on that somebody was protesting outside of New York 1. Zero coverage. Zero.
And that's the problem, exactly, is if it doesn't happen, if they don't cover it, it never happened. Only
if they don't cover it, never happened. And then it's so, but I guess part of the point is it's not just New York 1. Like, it makes you wonder, like, everyone's in on it together, it seems like.
Right.
And then when you really pay attention to the players, like, it's just the same couple of talking heads talking all day long in New York City politics. Same people, the same crew, and they're cool, and I respect a lot of their opinions or whatever, but like, going back to diversity of thought, there is none.
Right. No, exactly. There is none. And it frames it for the average voter or average citizen that their word, their thought is law, and the box that they think in is the only realm of possibility, and that there is nothing outside of that. And so when they frame candidates and when they frame campaigns and people, really, because that's what we all are, people, as non-viable, didn't raise $50,000 in a month and spend $50,000 in a month. One, you limit the amount of working class people that can run for office, which is a large amount of New York City. Two, those are the people that...
I got 4,000 registered voters in New York to sign a petition saying they want me on a ballot. That should mean something.
Right,
but it didn't mean more than money, because money talks and signatures don't, I guess.
So my question for you is this, Theo, real quick. I had a quick question. And to step back, what type of, what was your kind of plan, or how did you think it was going to go coming in as far as it relates to the press and the media, and to double that with how many people were already in the race when you announced? And what kind of was the landscape like? You know what I mean? Like, where there are already a couple of people and they were getting press, and you were thinking, okay, maybe the press will come and take to me, or like, what was your perception?
When I got into the race, I think it was like 180 people right now. So what was it, Theo? There was like literally like, I think 29, 30, 31 people around. And then once it went down to, it was 17 who actually made the ballot. And then one of them stopped running actively. So it was 17 people on the ballot, but 16 people actively running. And going in, look, I knew it was obviously a long shot thing, but it was a special election. Nobody knew about it. Nobody even knows what the public advocate does. I thought maybe there'd be like such a low turnout that there'd be a way to sneak in. And really my plan was just to have one person from the media go with the little engine that could story, because I was the little engine that could. I would go to these forums. I'd sit front and center. I'd get there nice and early so I could get the middle seat. I'd sit front and center, and it was like a who's who of politics in New York City, literally around me. And I was making a lot of sense, talking to the people and making a lot of sense, and not dilly-dallying over my answers and giving like specific answers and thoughts and different thoughts and having an impact to the crowd. And it was just mind-boggling how I got shut out. I mean, there was one forum where afterwards I had a great reception. It was at the GM at Gay Men's Health Crisis. They hosted it. It was just fantastic reception. At the end, I got interviewed by the New York Times. And I'm thinking, this is a great night, like I just got interviewed by the New York Times. They took my picture, like, this is fantastic.
Yeah.
But then when it came down to it and the article runs like a week later, it was an article about it was an article about race. It was an article about should it be a person of color, a black person, whatever, to be in this seat because it's only white people in government and the prior in the main positions in government in the city. And it was all about that. And then at the end, there's also 5 white guys running, and they have me speaking for the 5 white guys that are running, and basically saying, even though I'm white, I'm the best candidate. I don't know, and it's sad that's what that's what everything turns into. It seems like these days, and I keep my mouth shut as a white guy on a lot of things because it's probably time right now that's okay. But that's all I got into the New York Times for was sad when there was really a lot of people swarming me after that particular forum, really wanted to hear my ideas and like having connected with me.
Right. And the danger becomes that this person, well, it's a small shift in the pendulum because for so long it has been like a whites only thing, literally for some years it was. And then
forever, and I get that. Forever it was like that.
Right. But what happens is now they say, like what we were talking about before, right before we launched, that, just because someone is a different gender, a different race, a different orientation, that everything they do is okay or right. And that's not true, or that they're fighting for the people. That can be like common misconception. And it's so many corporate Democrats that aren't white men. So and corporate Republicans and all these things. So, but a question I had though, or a follow-up is that you kind of basically said, the little engine that could, you were the unknown in this race, and that, there were other people that had political careers. I'm also like the underdog in my race, right? It's a one-on-one election. And that's something that I've noticed is that you would think that the media would hop on a underdog story, or that they would kind of like want to champion that. But what I've realized is that the media is these politicians, these career politicians specifically. The media is these career politicians' only platform. That's their only soapbox. Whereas, other people have, if I'm a football coach, I have the big football game on Friday night. That's where I can get my shine, if or what have you. I'm a rapper, I'm an artist, so I do events, I do shows, I do this. So that's where I have a platform. For the politicians, the only thing that they control as a platform is the political media. So how you said, it seems like all of the TV stations kind of teamed up in a way to silence you. Feels very, 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 very real. And I never see them really champion underdogs. Like ever. It's like always like, oh wow, this incumbent that's been in for forever is really fighting for us. And it's like, like it's like a lot of pat on the back journalism for the incumbents. So but speak to that though, about them and the underdogs, and how the establishment uses the media as their platform.
I mean, think about your race. It's a one-on-one race. You're not getting a debate. I mean, that's kind of suspect. It seems like the people should deserve to hear something from you, unofficial something. It seems the people should be able to hear the incumbent discuss issues against the only person they're running against. And now with the federal debate, there is no debate statute. I understand. So it's all at the discretion of the media. But whose fault is it? Is it the media's fault, or is it the people's fault for not demanding this? Not demanding to know what's going on in their elections. I mean, what's the percent of people that they know anybody on the ballot? When they go and vote, maybe they know the incumbent's name, maybe. I mean, I would, as a social experiment, Paperboy, you should go around and just ask people in the district, knock, knock, who's your congressperson?
You know
And then
what?
when they don't know, you're going to inform them that your congressperson's been in Congress for 27 years. I mean,
But that's exactly the point. Is you touching, Jared? You're touching a very good point. Is it the false media, or is it the person and the voters' media, or the voters not asking for that from the media to give them a debate? And
I think people should be demanding that as a big issue. Debate should be a huge issue. You know, we hear about and I don't hear it coming from any of the Democratic clubs. I don't hear it coming from anybody. Anything about debates.
so
It's the fundamental of democracy is the election, and then the information of who the people on the ballot. You know, having some information about who the people on the ballot you would think is a fundamental part of democracy, and we've just skipped over it.
But so the question, and this is what these Zoom are all about, is explaining to a candidate what they're going against when they hope to have access to the media to tell at least once their story. But also, how do we get to change that narrative? Like, for example, when I was doing the public advocate with you, I was always talking about equal time. Give all the candidates equal time. And I was trolling Errol Lewis on Twitter that they finally answered on air saying, we cannot have a debate with all the candidates. And they made 300 excuses on why they couldn't give us 5 minutes to explain who we were. And so the question is, how do we change that narrative? Because social media is great. Everybody goes, oh, Facebook, Instagram, what we're doing right now. And a lot of people believe that our reach through Facebook is as big as the reach on New York One or Fox 5 in the morning or all those shows. And when Don Small was running, I was talking to her, asking her, what happened when you did something? She appeared on New York One because she had connection. She was, after all, Podesta lawyer. So she had access to the White House and a lot of people from the Obama administration that made her someone that was worth hearing. But you could see the change, the uptick in people looking at the website from the moment she appeared on the mass media, which was bigger than what AOC did when she put the video out. You remember when she put her video out, suddenly went viral? Well, the thing is, appearing on those shows has a bigger impact than social media. So how do we explain that to new candidates to figure out a way, basically, to I will not say burn the studio.
I'll say this. I'll say this real quick. I think, though, that if you look at something like the Joe Rogan podcast, right? You're familiar with the Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
Compare the interviews he's did with the candidates to, the presidential debates that came on, like the different channels when they've come on earlier in the year when they were having the debates, the Democratic presidential debates. I feel like Joe Rogan has something like that, has a lot of help for people, is a big boost. And I see that shift happening. Basically, it hasn't happened yet, but the shift is happening very much so that by the next cycle, presidential cycle, it could very well be that social media is more important, that it's more important for you to show up on some social media thing than it is on some television station, because of how long.
It's the same. Then those people become the same gatekeepers, and you hope that they're gonna keep the gates open for everybody. Mm-hmm. But it's impossible to get around. There's a point that it's impossible to somewhat get around it. You can't force media to do anything, because that goes against freedom of speech. I believe you can't. You're not going to get complete equal time. It would be nice if they had some time for everybody, but I'd like to see it as an active issue that the concerned voters of local groups, that they get these. That they jump on board a lot of hashtag solution issues, and this should be one of them. Debates. How about let's have debates before we have an election, And how about we make sure that every candidate that actually made the ballot could be heard by the voters to some degree? Just being able to have a minute and a half video. In my election, New York City Votes, they filmed everybody a minute and a half video. You could see it on YouTube, but it's a statement. It's a little statement. You want to be able to have some type of interaction between the candidates. And by having that interaction between the candidates, a voter can determine for themselves who do they want to be their leader. Something like Congress is pretty important. There's 435 Congress people representing us. And I'm telling you, if you walked around your district, no one's going to know who Nydia Velasquez is. They're not going to know. She's been in there for 27 years. That says a lot.
It says a whole lot. It says a lot. And that's one of the main issues why I even wanted to run, because I was like, wait, they're completely misusing this as a platform simply by the fact that so few people know they exist or even are thinking about their work until election time comes around. And it's like, and that's when they come, is when election time. And if there wasn't a primary challenger, I mean, you heard Elliot Ingalls say the thing about, if I didn't have a primary, I wouldn't be here. And it's like,
care. He's like, I wouldn't even care. Oh,
like, and it's like, dang, I can see if it was like an issue about like, like like we need to move this tree from this side of the street to that side of the street. But this is like,
right.
You know what I mean? Like kind of like, oh, okay, like it's not that big of a deal. Bro, we're talking about like people dying, police brutality, like this is why they have to go. This is why they have to
go. Look, I say fire everyone as a start. Fire everyone.
And the issue, and speaking of the media, a big issue is, I say all the time, the media gave us Donald Trump by their consistent reporting on him. And, oh, look what Donald Trump did today. Look what he did tomorrow. And by putting under the guise of like, oh, we have to let people know how bad he is. By doing that, they just told us his name over and over, just kept reminding us of him to the point where he became a viable candidate. And to so much so that even the local media over focuses on Donald Trump, and they miss all of the mini Donald Trumps. This is something I say, the mini Donald Trumps in our local politics, who a lot of them are Democrats. A lot of them are people who they might not say and do all the things that Donald Trump does, but they are carrying out the same policies and systems and upholding those systems that are the same things that you're fighting against for Donald Trump, but you don't see how it's being done in Congress, in the state legislature, and in the city council.
And they do Donald Trump a favor, where what they do is they focus on like crazy tweets and even like typos in tweets and just maniac things that he says. And at the same time, he's just appointing judge after judge after judge after judge after judge. And you don't hear anything about it. You hear a lot. You could quote all of his tweets, but he's got a lot of lifetime federal judges that he got appointed. The long-term damage that Donald Trump's done to this country is hard to quantify. And it's really sad. But he came in and he did what he said he was going to do. Nobody should be surprised. He said, I'm going to come in, I'm going to, tear up every treaty and screw every regulation. And he's a man of his word. He's doing exactly what he said he's going to do. So that's where, when you see a lot of people, his supporters still supporting him, it shouldn't be such a shock to people.
Right.
For better or, for worse, really, he's a man of his word.
Right.
He is a man of his word, and it's a bad word, but he's a man of it.
So bringing it back to New York 1 and to debating, how much do you think that, at what point in the election, because I went back before I actually ran and I watched some of the debates from that race, from that public advocates race. I saw the one that was at I want to say it was at like a school or something, and you guys were all on a stage. It was like at a school. I don't remember.
I did a lot of schools. Which one?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head. I know Theo was at that one.
What was if it was Theo in it, it was GMHC, I think.
Okay, yeah. I think that was the one. And yeah, that's right, because they asked questions about like HIV and stuff. So I remember that one. And how much do you think, because I haven't had a chance to debate, and how much do you think that a debate actually helped your chances of getting out there, and how much do you think actually being on the televised debate would have helped? Like, and if you had already had a lot of media coverage before, or if you hadn't had any media coverage before, and then also how many people were in that televised debate on New York One? Just let me know all of that stuff.
The televised debate, I think the first one was like 10, and then it dwindled down to like 6, because then the second criteria was like you had to raise like, I don't know, 120 or 200,000 something, and spend, not just raise, and spend. As far as, look, I think if I was in, I had, going to these forums was the only exposure I could really get and get right to the voters. And I think I picked up several hundred votes by going to these forums, but there's only so much you could do in a short time period when nobody's going to cover it. Had I been on a televised debate, I honestly think I would have had I wouldn't have came in last place. I think it would have been talked about the next day in the news. It would have been unavoidable because I was the only one speaking any sort of sense. A lot of the ideas that came out of my mouth would then come out of my opponent's mouth the next forum.
So
it would have had a huge impact.
Okay. And what would you say in the local press, what would you say has, outside of obviously the New York Times, but that's like an international publication, in the local press, what would you say has the most impact, in your opinion, on voters or people that actually influence voters here in New York? Like you got covered by this place, it's like, oh, okay, wow, you're really gaining traction or stuff. I know it's hard to say.
No, yeah, I mean, it's, you got the New York Post, you got the
social. It's a big, no one cares. Like we just in our day to day, like we care more about, I don't know, like maybe our local waitress that we like, or bartender, or deli guy. You know what I mean? Like if we care more about them, I'm talking about in your real life, in people's real life, like they actually care. Like, oh, if one of those people had a baby or something, they care more than their like local representative, a lot of the people. So another question I had was this, though. Speaking of caring, people mentioned that the older generation is the more inclined to vote, and they have a history of voting. They've been voting for 30 years, 40 years. So then they're already accustomed to voting. It's a habit. In your experience, how difficult or easy was it for you to connect with older voters, and how important was it to you to actually get to them, and talk about ways of actually doing that? The like practices on doing that.
Look, older voters vote, and they've not only that they've been doing it for so long, they have more time on their hands to make sure that on election day they're going to get there. What you should be doing is going, but I don't know. Right now you're in coronavirus, so you can't just go to old age homes. I guess you can't really approach senior citizens. It's complex right now. Your absentee ballot game should be high and strong right now, and there's going to be a lot of absentee ballots in an election like this. You're in a particularly interesting conditions to run a campaign, since you're not supposed to be within 6 feet of anybody, though we've all forgotten.
Right. No, exactly. So,
and then literally, I don't think you probably can't walk into an old age home. It's probably off limits completely. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. We've been delivering food to some old age homes, and they won't they won't let us go in, basically. Someone will like come and meet us and we'll give the food.
Yeah, so
before we go, because I yesterday when I told I was doing this with you, Jared, someone sent me a TED Talk from 2010, very short, called The Antidote to Apathy. It's Dave Metzling from Toronto. He's a teacher. Have you heard of him?
No.
Can I play it to you guys? And I want you to comment it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. because this is what we're fighting for basically. And so I'm going to share screen it, and let's see if you can hear it. And it's only 5 minutes. Can you see it?
Yes.
I can see it. Let's make sure we can hear it. I can't hear anything though.
Can you hear it?
No, can't hear it. That's funny. It says people don't care. That's literally
Yeah.
we can't hear it. You have to play it louder from your
Okay.
computer. While Theo's getting this set up though,
But I see, like, I just saw selfish and stupid. You know, I don't know if it's either of those. It's just I've had enough, and they don't want to hear the nonsense anymore.
What?
right.
I saw during the presentation, I just saw the word selfish and stupid as something about voter apathy, and if the point is that people are selfish and stupid, you know, I don't think that's true.
Right. I think it's a big part of it too, is because politics is boring to the average person. Like, you know, if you like baseball, that's exciting. If you like NBA, that's exciting. If you like listening to Rihanna, that's exciting. You know, if you like I don't know, following celebrity gossip, that's exciting. Maybe you like going on hikes, that's exciting. You like, you know, just walking around the city or art, that's exciting. But when it comes to actual politics, there's been nothing. They've made no steps to make it more interesting, to make the experience for the citizen a more enjoyable experience. And part of my background is in web development. And one of the things we talk about is user experience. What is the experience like? Do I have fun when I'm on your website? Do I enjoy it? Is it hard? Is it make me go like this when I'm doing it? And it's this same thing with politics. You know, a lot of people feel that way. They feel like, oh, I'm not smart enough, or I'm not what have you, so they don't want to actually get involved, and that gets us to the point where our democracy really suffers, because the whole point of democracy is to have the best possible outcome from the most voices that are heard. You know, that exactly. So if we only have a limited amount of voices, and right now what's happening is our political scene is marketing to just a small subset of people so that everyone won't be interested. Theo, where you messed up, you actually have to share your audio before you share your screen. So make sure you share audio. Did you do that?
Oh, no, you were. The funny part here is as the TED Talk was progressing, I was hearing you explain it, and literally you were saying what the presenter was actually saying on the screen, like making it more exciting. You know, like he was talking about those things when you have those public display where like we're going to have a meeting to discuss the rezoning of this building, that we're going to grow it, he showed the sign, and he says, well, what about if Nike made advertisement for their shoe the same way? Nike Corporation is going to present a shoe that will be available for kid mothers and daughter, made of nylon, specification 35. You will be able to get it.
Exactly. No, it has to, and that's one of the reasons why we need diversity of thought and people with fresh ideas. When I did my first club meeting, Jared, and I spoke about, I gave my speech, and you know, I was fired up. I was because I came with the passion and the energy of the people in my community who would never get a chance to speak in front of 3 Congress people, and have been hurting and dying and suffering. I had to have that same energy. I couldn't come in there complacent. I had to have energy. And when I finished the speech, a guy came up to me and he's like, yo, I've been living here all my life. I just moved back into the neighborhood and I wanted to get involved. So I came out to this meeting, and he was like, you completely woke me up. You fired me up, and you're right. It is too boring. It isn't exciting. We actually have to have people like that are engaged in this. And he said, while I was sitting there, I had the idea of, and when he told me this idea, it didn't really click until later. He said, I had the idea of, if we put on the ballot, putting like you can vote for best artist or best restaurant or whatever on there. So everybody who's, if you get to, or best TV show, right? So everyone who is I don't know, what's a big TV show? Walking Dead fan or best sports team. So everyone who's a baseball fan, basketball fan, they also want to come out to vote and say, oh, I want to put that the Yankees are the best team. Oh, I want to put that the Cowboys are the best team, or whoever, whatever their team is. Oh, I want to, and that doesn't, and then they just vote that, oh, that, you know, Brooklyn voters decide that the Yankees are their favorite team or what have you. But that's something to get people actually out to vote, to make them more excited to vote. You know, that's just a tactic to it. And how much would that boost voter turnout? Because right now in my district of 750,000 people, roughly, with 250,000, a rough estimate of the amount of registered Democrats, only about 4% to 5% turnout in primaries. 4% of the registered turnout in primaries. So that means we actually have to have something more exciting because people, like the thing said, people don't care about anybody on the ballot. Like,
I know, it's too bad though, because the exciting thing should be the candidate, really.
It should be.
Here's the, I finally shared the sound, I figured out. So I'll give you the third part, which was the media. So that's what we were talking about. So this is what
the media plays an important role in developing our relationship with political change, mainly by ignoring politics and focusing on celebrities and scandals. But even when they do talk about important political issues, they do it in a way that I feel discourages engagement. And I'll give you an example. The Now magazine from last week, Progressive Downtown Weekly in Toronto. This is the cover story. It's an article about a theater performance, and it starts with basic information about where it is, in case you actually want to go and see it after you've read the article. Where, the time, the website. Same with this. It's a movie review, a art review, a book review, where the reading is in case you want to go. A restaurant, you might not want to just read about it, maybe you want to go to the restaurant, so they tell you where it is, what the prices are, the address, the phone number, etc. Then you get to their political articles. Here's a great article about an important election race that's happening, talks about the candidates, written very well, but no information, no follow-up, no websites for the campaigns, no information about when the debates are, where the campaign offices are. Here's another good article about a new campaign opposing privatization of transit without any contact information for the campaign. The message seems to be that the readers are most likely to want to eat, maybe read a book, maybe see a movie, but not be engaged in their community. And you might think this is a small thing, but I think it's important because it sets a tone and it reinforces the dangerous idea that politics is a spectator sport. Heroes. How do we view leadership? Look at these 10 movies. What do they have in common? Anyone? They all have heroes who were chosen. Someone came up to them and said, you're the chosen one. There's a prophecy. You have to save the world. And then someone goes off and saves the world because they've been told to, with a few people tagging along. This helps me understand why a lot of people have trouble seeing themselves as leaders, because it sends all the wrong messages about what leadership is about. A heroic effort is a collective effort, number one. Number two, it's imperfect. It's not very glamorous, and it doesn't suddenly start and suddenly end. It's an ongoing process your whole life. But most importantly, it's voluntary. It's voluntary. As long as we're teaching our kids that heroism starts when someone scratches a mark on your forehead or someone tells you that you're part of a prophecy, they're missing the most important characteristic of leadership, which is that it comes from within. It's about following your own dreams uninvited, and then working with others to make those dreams come true. Political parties, oh boy. Political parties could and should be one of the basic entry points for people to get engaged in politics. Instead, they become, sadly, uninspiring.
Yeah, the whole political parties part is a whole other aspect. But no, that's a really good point. I think it comes down to the point he was making about the people that are actual, the newspapers and how they present how they presented the movie review versus the political candidate review. And it speaks about how even in the political press has already been trained to frame things in such a boring way. It's like you get points for the most boring like I've seen that before. It's like, oh, you're not boring enough. You got to be more boring. It's like literally that's what it is sometimes. Like I was at a city council meeting and it was like, and it was about police brutality. and it was with the Public Safety Commission, I believe, and we were talking about police brutality. And I had a video, the same way I have a screen behind me. I had a video, but it was one of my music videos about spreading love, right? And it just has me like in the background or whatever. Other people had stuff that said F the police, and they had like, you know, defund the NYPD. They had all stuff behind them. I just had my video spreading love, and they consistently cut off my video, not allowing me to speak. Because they didn't say why. I assume it was because of my background, but my background wasn't vulgar. There was no drugs, alcohol, cursing, nudity. There was nothing profane. And they just, you know, my thing was, it wasn't boring enough. You know what I mean? I'm like, wait, and I'm also a person who is I look like a black male. So, and I'm sitting here, we're talking about police brutality, and you're silencing me, which is the whole point of, that's the reason brutality happens, people judging people on how they look or how they present and all these things. So it goes to show how politics is just literally eating itself like over and over again. Like, and why they don't realize this type of activity is what's going to cause the uprising for candidates like myself to win, why we have somebody like Donald Trump, and why so many people are fed up with politics and don't care.
But that's the thing, is we need to make sure that people like you, Jared, and hopefully we're going to inspire a whole set of new people. And this series of video will help them know what they're against, because this is the rule book. We're telling them the rule book. Now they need to go and break the rule book to figure out how to wake up the voter. And anyway, I mean, I think we have like 5 minutes left on Instagram.
Okay.
We have circled the wagon. What?
Well, then I had some final questions for Jared in our last couple of minutes. So you mentioned some things that you would do differently if you had the chance, like the in-kind donations piece. But if you had to give your advice to someone that was going to run for office in an election that has many candidates like it did before, what would be some of the best advice you could give them to prepare for? And who would you say they should talk to, or kind of type of resources, things that they should follow? Because a big thing for me running for office, when I was looking for just resources, there was also nothing that helps. I mean, just looking like how to run for office and who can help, and like there's nothing, especially if you don't have those type of connections. So
for New York City, running for an election, which is different than federal that you're running, the New York City votes website from the Board of Elections, they have a great section as far as step-by-step how to get on a ballot, which is literally what I figured out. You know, it was fill out this form, fill out this form, fill out this form, open a bank account, here's the petition form, and have a nice day. And I really, if you follow it to the T, you will get on the ballot. They also have in the Board of Elections, there's a rule book that they give you for free if you walk in on the desk, that if you read that rule book, you will get on the ballot. I know Theo likes to play around with like the games of how to get on the ballot, and he protests all that, etc. But there are rules to get on the ballot, and if you follow those rules, you will get on the ballot. You know, and then you also got to not back down. You know, I don't know why I've been a lot of candidates, they get challenged with their petitions and then they back down for some reason. And I just don't get it. And frankly, if you're going to back down from a challenge on a petitions, maybe you shouldn't be the candidate. Like, if you're not going to fight for yourself, who are you fighting for? And fight, and don't be scared, and go for it. If you're thinking of running for office, run for office. Like, nothing bad will happen to you. Only good will happen to you, and you're going to have an experience that you would not even believe, and a story to tell the grandkids, at the very least. And then if you win, maybe you could actually get something done.
Exactly.
Well, that's what Rep My Block is there for, is to help people run and do the paperwork and all the stuff you were talking about. Because we had a Zoom with Paperboy, with Badroom Khan, who's running against AOC, who were talking about petitioning, the whole grueling thing about petitioning. And Paperboy said, yeah, here is the rule book, the red book. I mean, you were talking about that. You're looking for it. I see you.
Yeah, I have it somewhere. Yeah.
No, but it's, and you followed it, and look what happened. You're on the ballot.
Right.
And somehow that's against all odds, but it shouldn't be. Like, you just follow it and you get on,
And you know what's funny? So speaking about that, I'll say this. I the other day in McCarran Park, I ran into the person that challenged my petitions. I ran into them in the park because one of my volunteers met them before during door knocking. They met them and they asked them, "Hey, why are you gonna, did you actually challenge Paperboy's petitions?" And so this person recognized my volunteer. They were like, "Hey, I know you. You came and knocked on my door before." And the person's like, "A person." He was so cool. He was like, "Yo, I have friends that work in politics." And it was like, "You seem like a cool person to me. Like, I like what you're doing. I like that you're going after it." Like, we had a cool civil conversation that actually was like a friendly conversation. I feel like we could totally be friends.
Because he was used. Look at that. He was a straw man of a political nonsense. Just, oh yeah, him. But there's a lot to be said about how, and it's both sides play the same games. Both sides play the same games. Look at the district you're running in. It's the most gerrymandered thing I ever saw. Look at that district on a map. And then you hear about, the Republicans, they're gerrymandering. Everybody's doing everything. Look at NY7 and tell me that that's not the most gerrymandered thing you've ever saw in your life. Every district should be a rectangle or as close to a rectangle as possible. I don't know. But
thank you. Thank you. Like, thank you. I'm like, what shape were you guys trying to make? Because that's not even like that's like,
it's a boomerang. It's a boomerang, and we're going to keep them.
It's keeping incumbents in power. Everything's about keeping incumbents in power and keeping them paid. Because if they had to go on the streets, they'd have to actually get a real job. I'm all for term limits. I'm all for, how could you be in the federal government for 30 years? How could you be a congressperson for 30 years? You just got a time limit. Either you get to be the president or you have to go get a job. And that's it.
So no, absolutely. So we have only 20 seconds on Instagram. So for the Instagrammer, we're going to say goodbye. It was a pleasure having you, Jared.
Yes.
Thank you all. Really great to meet you, Paperboy. I wish you the best of luck. I hope you pull off an upset. I really, really hope you pull it off.
Yo,
I think it'll be great.
Hey, great to have you, Jared. And I'm glad.
23rd.
Yes, I'm glad that we were able to have you, and thank you for all the knowledge that you're sharing with us, and being willing to speak out and talk about your experiences and share that. And I'll tell you right here, I'll let you know straight up, we are going to pull off an upset, and we're going to make it happen. And part of it is because of people like you who are taking the time out of your day to speak with us and believe in us and actually work with us, because that's what this is about, working together as a community and having a better city, a better state, and a better society as a whole. So
I live in a district, so
you live in 7?
I'll talk to my wife about it.
Yeah. Oh, you live in District 7?
I sure do. I live and work in District 7.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I would be honored if you decided to vote for me, and you know what, that's a completely your decision, obviously, but much appreciated. And thank you so much.
This is now turning. So for the people who don't understand, this is what a candidate needs to do to ask for someone's vote when they live in the district. I didn't realize you live in this district. I didn't do my homework on you. So I need to send you all the information we've been sending to people on District 7.
Listen, the first time I seriously I've wanted to run for office for a long time. The first step I actually took towards really running for office, I retained the firm in DC back in 2017 to run for this district. Wow. But then I backed off because I just had a baby. I was about to have a baby, and then I had a second baby, and it was just a little too much for that. But
so what can we do? The other thing is, you're bringing out another point. Is how can someone who has a family and a baby can run? Because the job.
I don't think maybe you shouldn't during those years. Is my thought.
But the thing is, how if you cannot have a representative in Congress that know what it is to have a baby, can they make rules for people who have baby?
Well, right. Look, I agree with you on that, but like the 1-year-old, 2-year-old, maybe you just can't run their nose time. I don't know.
Hard. I understand. I didn't say impossible, but we can make it easier. That's
Can I
the
ask?
whole.
Can I ask what just general neighborhood?
I'm in Cobble Hill. Cobble Hill.
Okay, Cobble Hill. Okay, great, Cobble Hill. So I was able
office is
to.
on Court Street. My office is 44 Court Street. So,
Oh wow. Okay, great. Well, we just got a bus, so we're gonna have a bus coming around your neighborhood, the whole district, and telling people that they can vote, telling people that they can vote for me, and that's what we talk about, making it fun. It's also gonna be like a party and stuff. So
no, good. Keep me in mind, man. Be in touch.
So we'll be
All
at
right,
his office. What was it? 418 Noble Street, Noel.
yeah, 184 Knoll Street. We're actually opening our campaign office and protest resource center today. So it's called the Paperboy Love Prince Protest
Palace?
Power Palace. Yes.
The Power Palace. All right.
Yeah. Yes. So, but it's also the campaign office. So there's a lot of good things are happening there. But Jared, once again, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day. Thank you,
Thanks
Theo, for helping us host this and rep my block.
And we'll keep
Much
this,
love.
and hopefully we'll use it for teaching.
Yeah. Look forward to
Yes,
talking to you guys sometime in the future. And good luck, Paperboy.
Thanks. Good luck to you too.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Peace.
Peace.
Yes. Paper.